I'm Holly Furgason from San Francisco at Blue Sparrow Pilates. So I wanted to start by posing a few questions and then I'll open it up to the entire group. So today I'm thrilled to announce that we have Moira Merrithew as our special guest. I'm going to unmute you and then you can say hello.
Hi. I'm very excited to be here. This is wonderful and actually flattered that you invited me. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. So I wanted to have this meetup. We've been having it. This is our 5th week now, and I want it to be a really positive experience. And so we're going to stick to kind of finding some inspiration during this unique time in the world. And so today the topic that we decided on was sharing your gifts. And so I wanted to go back, Moira, to the beginning of your career. I know that you certified under Romana, and I'm just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what that was like to train at Joseph's original studio and with Romana.
Well, that was just a few years ago. It was, first of all, completely frightening because coming to, Bermuda, Canada, and then I go into New York and go up to the actual studio, which was on the 5th floor or 4th floor. And I didn't even know if the elevator would make it. It was so old. And I just wasn't used to that. And then you walk right in, vinyl flooring, plumbing everywhere. And I had stopped dancing because I couldn't dance anymore. I was injured and I didn't know what to do with my life. And so I had researched this instead of going into physiotherapy. And so this had to work for me because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life at all. And so I walked in and I literally wanted to hightail out of it. Like they ignored me completely. I stood there for the longest time, and then it was probably, I'd say 45 minutes later, everybody's shouting this, shouting that. And then Romana goes, "You're the little girl from Canada." And so she comes over. Anyway, long story short, I was very lucky because I wanted to do everything, and her training was everything. Joseph Pilates taught her the full repertoire because she could do the tricks. And so it was in the days, there was no manuals, no videos, you had pictures literally of Joseph Pilates that you just followed, and no breath, no nothing. And you just learned exactly how she taught you that day, and then you learned exactly how she taught you the next day. And then, by the end of it, and again, as I say, there was no official training back then, I was just sitting at her feet. I started working with some of her clients, some of the instructors at that time. So I'm blessed that I was able to have that time with her to learn it all. But it was, it wasn't not easy because you didn't have the, there was nothing written down. My notes are very, I put them into one of our workshops, which are very, very rough. But on the other hand, I think that I still go back and I feel very lucky that I was able to spend that time, with her. And, you guys have it really easy now. That's all I'm saying.
That's funny. And so when we look at videos of Joseph Pilates doing exercises and even Romana, I've been told that the film to digital translation is off a little bit. And so it looks a little more like stiff than it was. Does it look like stiff. How? Okay.
Oh yeah.
It looks like it. Yes. How the film looks.
He's German, right? And it was very. The breath pattern is your. If you see, him in his little teeny shorts, right? And that the big chest. He believed, and he was ahead of his time. The breath is to create that circulation. But his breath was a full inhale, and then you blow the air out, you empty it. And so within the exercises themselves, you are focusing so much on that, although there's no set breath pattern, that it is, you're almost holding your breath sometimes to get up into that tightness. And so if you look back now, it's a very global way of working. I go back and I teach exactly that from then to now. I don't know if anybody's done that, but I teach exactly how Ramana taught me so that everybody can get an understanding of, with the evolution, why things happened. And it's only because basically physiotherapy back then has evolved. And so same thing, needed to happen with Pilates work, and he would have done it with himself. So, but it's a lot more rigid, stiff, everything, very, 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 very correct. Yeah. And no disrespect whatsoever. So,
yeah. So other than Romana, I was wondering, who are some of the people that have shaped how you teach and who you are as a teacher?
I would say, so many people, because I'm just that type of person, especially when I first came back to Canada, and I was doing what I had been trained. Good friend of mine was a physiotherapist, and it was at a time when Robin McKenzie, the physiotherapist that had come out with the McKenzie technique, which was all extension to alleviate disc problems and posterior lateral disc problems. So here I'm doing everything flexed, right? And so when I first came back, I was very nervous, and I was like, well, this is how I was taught. And I heard high risk, high risk. That was when I went and I saw Kathy Grant, who was in New York at that time. And she has a kinder, gentler approach because she had a knee problem. And so, if you've done, she's absolutely amazing. They're all a different part of his brain because they all went with different things, right? And so it's really fascinating to see how they have evolved it. And so then Eve Gentry was tiny, and so her equipment was tiny to go with her, and she was very much about the breath. So her and Corolla Tria with a breath and just much slower, more careful way of working. And then you get Ron Fletcher out in California, right? Aerobics generation, and everything there is flat turned out. Still with the posterior pelvic tilt held, but everything flat turnout. And he's where we got, when we do the percussive breath on the 100, I sort of took that from him way back because I like the way it helped people to take the longer inhale on the 100, okay? And then blow all the air out. So all along the way in the beginning, I was looking at all these different instructors and kind of seeing their evolution. And then from there, heavily went into the medical side of it, science research with my physiotherapist friend, and we had to start from scratch and completely evolve it, because back then they were still coming out with stability. If you're unstable in the spine, they just realized that could cause pain. So we're going way back. And then Vleeming and Hodges and Hyde and Shirley Sarman, neutral alignment, right? Everything we did was posterior pelvic tilt. So we had to completely change where the pelvis was first and then take that from there. So over the years, starts with the elders, but then after that it was, and we didn't even know the elders back then. They didn't talk that way. They were just another instructor that had worked with Joseph Pilates. But then, we just kept evolving it for years and years and years. Once we started, it was really important. And then especially later, the training just happened because we did one little video to show how we'd modified after local global stability labels came out. And then from that, we, believe it or not, sold 1 million of that first video. And then people wanted to train with us. And we're going back into 91, 92. And so then people said, I like the way you're doing that. Can you show me? And then one thing led to the other. But we sort of got into the equipment first. But I'm like, sorry.
No, that's all great. It's all really interesting. I was wondering, then this is probably a harder question, but was there a moment that you realized that you were gifted as a teacher?
Never. No. I always walk out of everywhere going, I wish, I wish. And our organization, we're all have to be on our toes because there's so many incredible brains that, you know, you're always sort of like, oh, I probably should have said that, or that. I completely lost it there. You know, I never really came to this thing that I'm a good teacher. I just really enjoyed what I was doing.
Yeah. And is there something that you enjoyed about teaching that's like a skill that has followed you through your whole career? Something that you could pinpoint, like being in front of a big group, or I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think hard to tell now, but I was so shy, like paralytically shy. And then when I started dancing, no one could touch me out there, and you know, it was safe. And then I think that when I started to teach more and feel more comfortable with myself, because all along the way, it was tough because nobody cared that Joseph Pilates did it this way. We were back in Canada, and it was nobody had heard of Pilates back then. So I was constantly getting, you know, like, what is that? What is that? So not good for the self-esteem. And then working in a restaurant as well to try to make enough money, you know, so no self-esteem. So it took a long time. But I think for me, sorry, getting back to answering your question, because I was a performer, because I was a dancer, like I love it. Like I love this. I love going out in front of people. I love it, but it's the same in a performance. You're always going to go back and tear yourself apart, or I should have done this, or I should have done that. You know, I think most people are like that.
Yeah, I think
that's what
all good teachers are kind of like that, where they're constantly evaluating how they could improve their teaching.
Yeah, or get the message across. I think that's some of we all talk a certain way, and we're so used to saying this, and then suddenly things evolve a little and you go, oh my God, okay, got to say that differently, or why do I say that, and what does that even mean? You know, you really have to re-examine what you are saying, and sometimes you'll go out there thinking that you are so clear, and you look around the room and it's like, so then you go, okay, that didn't work. So, you know, it's just constantly finding ways to keep it simple and clear, but then take it to a level that especially instructors that have been around for a while are still learning something, you know?
Yeah. And in terms of enthusiasm, every time I've been around you, you're just like very enthusiastic. You're very positive. You're fun to be around. And I assume that is part of what a lot of people are looking for in a teacher, modern teacher, versus being scared when they walk in the studio, like you were describing.
Yes, well, I think it was the old dancer thing, right? In which bred a lot of subservience, and so you went in there and you shut up, right? And that was a little bit like that with Romana until like she had a couple of drinks or something, and then, you know, and then she would do flips. I mean, she really had so much charisma; it was amazing. But I think, yes, it is one of those things where, as I was shy, but then as I've gotten older, I figure, like, what have I got to lose, right? But I just enjoy it. I love the challenge, and they do keep me locked up a lot, and then they let me out. And so when you see me like this, it's because, yay, you know.
You get out.
Yeah, old joke. Yeah.
Well, since you've seen Pilates evolve over several years, where do you think Pilates is going in the next 10 years? And what do you think are some of the opportunities that Pilates professionals have now with the technology and other things that, as we're looking forward?
Well, I think it's really exciting. But I think what we're going to notice is it's not going to be like always just Pilates, because I don't think Pilates can stay alive in the pure sense of just being Pilates. I think as instructors, we have to be more than that. And that doesn't mean you have to teach something different, but you have to pay much more attention to function and form of somebody, because now it's about the individual, even though we always said Pilates you tailor, but you don't really. For the longest time, it was a prescription, and you would do Pilates and you would do the same exercise, you know, after, and that worked for a lot of people that didn't do any moves like that at all. But through time, we know that we need to look at the person, examine them dynamically, and then make sure that the training that we're giving them, whether it's, you know, the exercises one after the other, or taking it apart, or cross-training them in other modalities, which is really important now, because for our fascial system, you want to switch things up. So long story short, Pilates has huge potential to be the backbone of the mind-body realm, and that's what we want to do, is take mind-body mindfulness forward, and Pilates is right on the forefront of that. It just needs to keep the open mind so that people understand you don't just do one or the other. It fits in with your whole week, and you should be doing one and the other, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So that we can open it up a little bit more to everyone. In terms of gifts, another way of saying gifts is to say your strengths. So understanding your strengths as a teacher is kind of a little bit of what I wanted to talk about. And so it might be things like you have the ability to win people over, or you're a great learner, or you're good at connecting different parts of disconnected things, either in this body or in life. So I'm wondering if anyone has had any insight into what's helped them to identify their strengths as teachers. Feel free to raise your hand or do the little digital hand raising thing. Don't be scared.
I'll speak at once.
Mary, you always have something to say.
Yeah, I mean, I was, as a new teacher, I come from an acting background, which is really similar, I guess, to dance in that it's very performative. And so I found that my way of dealing with imposter syndrome, which I think still creeps up, especially when I get a client that's got stuff going on that I am not well versed enough to just use my Pilates training for, I just sort of put on that, what if I was a ballet teacher mode, and I'm going to make this something that feels like lyrical, and also like you're going to listen to me and not, talk to each other, like to sort of have a commanding presence that's also warm is something that I am constantly trying to make sure is going on in all of my classes and my private encounters, and in general.
Yeah, and if I can I, I know that the imposter syndrome, I know really well. And I think we all have it to a certain degree. And then you, especially with your acting, I know I was with one for many, 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 many years. But you're able to switch on to something when you get out there. And sometimes I think you don't even realize what you're doing, but you start off, and that's probably why you're a good actor or actress, because you are able to express. You have an imposter syndrome, but then most are able to go out there and just be what they need to be for, those people out there that you teach. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Go ahead, Anne. I'll unmute you. Here you go. There you go.
Hey, thanks to everybody. And Moira, so nice to meet you in one way or another. Well, I came to Pilates a little bit later, so I was 40-ish. And I think I was able to connect with older clients that appreciated just a little bit more experience under my belt in different ways. I had taught different types of material, ESL and whatnot. So I was comfortable teaching, but with entirely different material. And because I didn't have any background in anatomy at all, no dance, no nothing, I had to work really hard at it. So I think one of the first things that worked for me with clients is that I was able to explain to them which muscles we were working on and which ones we were not working on. So really trying to switch off, switch on. And I think because I had to work so hard at it, that's really become something that clients count on me for being able to help them understand where they're supposed to feel the work.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, did anyone else want to share? Kim, I'll unmute you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was an English major, so words are sort of my thing, but I was also, I danced and I did gymnastics, so I had, that movement background. And so the two, I'm told quite a bit that I use really good cues, or I describe things really well, and I don't even know I'm doing it, and they'll say, that was the best description of that. So I think that's becoming one of my, you know, teaching styles, or that's my strength in my teaching, is that
Yeah.
I'm able to communicate.
And if I kind of jump off of that, I think that some of us take positive feedback and spin that into the understanding of, oh, this is a skill I have. People keep telling me I'm good at describing something or whatever it is. I'm a little bit more like Moira, where I was shy and self-conscious. And I mean, I remember teaching as quietly as I possibly could, because I thought the other teacher in the other room was going to realize how dumb I was and how bad I was cueing it, and come in and be like, get out of here, you're not doing anything right. But and I'm sure that's just part of who I am, but I took criticism, and I was able to take the criticism I was receiving and not just feel bad, because of course we all feel a little bit bad, but when it's positive, constructive, negative feedback, I guess is what I would say. I was able to spin that into improvement. And I won't get into it, but I have multiple times where somebody told me a really hard truth about how I was managing my clients or conducting myself as a teacher. And it made the biggest impact in me changing, because I realized that wasn't how I wanted to be as a teacher. And so I think it could be either the positive things or the negative things that can help us to change.
Yeah. No, that's a good, if I could sort of say something. It's hard because this little Brady Bunch thing on the side, and then I lose myself, and then because I have to see how I look.
Do the gallery view.
Just how do I do that?
Top right corner, it says speaker view. If you click gallery view, then you get to see more people.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
There are a few people here.
Now
okay.
You're on stage.
All right, I take that back. I'm not going to say anything now. No. I think that was one of, way back when I used to dance. And sorry, I'm butting in again, making it all about me, but way back when, not way back, I grew up in Bermuda, ballet school there. And then I went to England to a ballet school that was very Royal Academy style. And I had been taught Russian style. So I was wild, and they brought me right in, and really negative, very negative criticism of, the way they taught class. And the dance teachers just sat there with a little shawl, right? Like cane probably, and just watched. There was no love, there was no encouragement. And they figured by the time you got through the third year, if you made it, you're good. So saying that, then I got a job in a ballet company in Canada, and Marion Bear, who is responsible for me actually being able to get to Toronto way back when I was 17, 18. He had the most amazing way of teaching, positive correction, but really specific to what was happening. And that I reacted so well to that, and that taught me so much, that I think imagery is huge, and I know that there are the teachers that are just amazing at imagery, and that's so important, but some of us are not as good at the imagery side. But I think everybody has their strengths, and it's got to be what you're comfortable with. And so, for me, it was just being really specific to what was actually happening, taking it apart to what was happening, and trying to keep it as simple as possible, so that you're not giving 1,000 words of, one thing. And through the years, I think it was, if you know what your intent is, what's the intent of what you're doing, and what you want the result to be. So, if you've got that really clear with why you're doing that with somebody, I think it's really important. Then you can be very clear with your instruction. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really very concise way of putting that, is that you have to balance, you have to know what your intent is, which obviously as a new teacher, that's going to be hard, because your intent is to just tell them to do some exercise, and that might be as much as you can do at that moment.
Sure. Yeah. But that's all part of the process, right? We all start somewhere, and it's all levels.
Yeah. Did I see anybody else's hand? I wanted to share, which people never believe me, But I'm serious when I say this, because I was very shy. I didn't know how to be in charge of a group of people, and I didn't know how to be the authority in a room. And I love animals, and I started watching The Dog Whisperer, and I realized that Cesar Millan and how he's like, he's an assertive leader with animals, that we're all just animals, and we want to walk into a room and feel like, okay, that person is in control and they're going to take care of me, and I'm okay. And I used to have the experience of where I would go into a room and almost like dogs attacking the weaker dog, where I'd be teaching and they'd be like, you said inhale, I thought you wanted me to exhale. And they'd be butting in and they'd start to take over. And as I learned more from Cesar Millan, I learned how to be the authority, the calm, assertive leader. And I can't say I'm always calm, but trying to be the calm, assertive leader helps people to feel more comfortable in a room.
That's good. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, quote me on that.
I have 2 dogs also that have trained me. So, okay.
Well, so then the next question I was wondering about is, how has teaching online over the last few weeks, how has that changed your ability to share your strengths with other people? Does anyone have any insight into that? Everyone's scared to talk today. Oh yeah, Jen, go ahead.
Hi, am I unmuted?
You're unmuted.
Okay, good. Hi, Moira. Nice to meet you.
How are you?
Good, thanks. I've found it generally very pleasurable. What I've had some problems with is just the technical difficulties, and that can throw me off. That just like takes me out of my teaching voice in my head. So that's the one thing. But what I do enjoy is I can feel the work and speak to what I'm feeling, and that I think comes through on camera. Another challenge besides technical difficulties is you're not there with them, so you don't have that, hands-on. So it's that balance of not over cueing or overdoing it and still being with them working. So it's like a fine line of having to kind of juggle the whole picture. But, it's interesting. I think we learn as we go, and you get more comfortable as you go and teach more and do it more. And then you learn from your mistakes, and then going back to the point where you're always, your worst critic as a teacher, like, oh, I should have said that, or I forgot that one thing on one side, or whatever.
You're sure that everybody noticed that, right?
Yeah. So that's kind of my take.
Yeah, awesome. Go ahead, Wendy.
Hi, Maura. Nice to meet you. I have been doing both Zoom and I actually launched something on Facebook. So the differences between teaching live and teaching on Zoom. So it's very different, because on Zoom, you can have conversations with people, but when you're doing it live, it's a little strange because it's just like this quiet wasteland. You just don't know what the reaction is from the client. So it's been really interesting. It was a brand new experiment that I did today, and it went really well. But I had a friend of mine, give me feedback. So it's nice to have people be honest with you and tell you what you might not be doing, or something that you might have missed. Of course, like Mary was saying, the imposter syndrome. But anyway, it's been a really good experience overall. So I don't know if that helps any.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because we've had to change our model immediately. Like, this is for us being really just a little stressful, because with having instructors around the world, we want to make sure that everybody can maintain a livelihood. And so one of the first things we had to do, and that was exactly what came up first, was, do they know how to turn something on? And how many different things do they need to turn on? And how many people can they have in front of them when they turn that on? Because first, people don't think, well, if you have an iPhone and you've got 10 people, that's very tricky if it's live, right? And so things you don't think of it until you're about there to do it, and then you go, oh my God, whoops. So, but we're in a world right now that's more forgiving, And so I think, by just saying, okay, maybe for me, I will say that I don't even know what button to push, but please give me feedback or if I can offer more. I think if you, a little bit of humility in when you're sort of setting things up, people are going to forgive you. And if you ask for feedback and acknowledge that feedback somehow, people are so forgiving. But if you try to sometimes, except when you don't do 5 on one side, 6 on the other, I do that all the time. And through the videos, if you ever see that, yeah, sorry. But, people are a lot more forgiving usually if you are the first to say, this is a bit new territory for me, and I would love to get your feedback. I think, and most of them are your clients that love you anyway, so they're going to want to see you, and it's all good. I admire. I think that it's just amazing how everybody is coming to the table, and overnight, suddenly in this virtual world, surviving. Like I'm just, so amazed. You're a tough breed, as they say, you instructors.
Yes, I agree. Did anyone else want to comment on any of that? Yeah, Sam, sorry. I'm trying to unmute. There we go.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Moira. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
My experience with Zoom has been very interesting too, but also very good, as everybody said. They're very appreciative that we are doing all this work to make them healthy and moving around. And one of the feedback I got from my clients is that, wow, I didn't know I could do so much with so little in my house.
Yeah.
They appreciate that they can do so much things, that because we're in a studio, you have so many apparatus and you are drawn to them automatically, and they like that too. And then you start doing things that they like doing too. But taking that apart and having you to figure out, okay, how I'm going to work this part of that muscle and that person with what we have at home. And they really like that. And they're like, wow, and sometimes they say I'm working more than I was working before. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But I think there's another level of appreciation for the mat and the little props.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? I didn't miss any hands, did I? Okay. Oh, wait. Todd.
Hey there.
Hello.
How's it going? I brought Finnegan along.
Oh, yay.
Oh my God. Okay, I gotta go get Leo.
This is Finnegan.
I follow Finnegan on Instagram, so.
Okay. Yeah, they only, so I'm a bit of an anomaly as a Pilates instructor. I'm actually a CFO for a marketing agency, and that's my day job. So I teach part-time. I am certified, and I only have 3 clients, so I haven't done the part-time or the online thing at all with those clients. But the thing about it is, I think, it's expanding your business operations, right? I mean,
yes.
Now you can say, when your client says, hey, I'm going on vacation, or I'm going to be gone for 3 weeks, the thing to say is, well, let's meet online and continue your workouts. And hopefully it's now, as much as we don't want to be in this place in the world, it's giving, hopefully, people, all of you, the opportunity to kind of think about how you continue with your clients when they're not there. And so hopefully, by taking this time to learn how to do this, whether it's learning the technology first, and then really developing your skill set in this medium, you can, grow your revenue in some way.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Go ahead, Moira.
Yeah, really so true, because now you're not stuck to just the client that's in your area, and for us, for our organization, because we are around the world and we do training, we have to be really careful of in our sort of evaluating this new world we're in, of going too far one way and then, you know, not being able to pull it back. So when I'm saying that is for workshops and for learning new repertoire, you know, there's so many things that can be done virtually, or the virtual can basically subsidize the training or, you know, be the backup to the training. Mm-hmm. And so we're letting the mat workout go out there first because we want everybody to have a livelihood, right? But, you know, when it comes to the courses, we've had to pull back a bit because there's so much of a human element that, you know, you want, or we want instructors to see different bodies. And so because we're not an organization where we're learning just the choreography, it's all about the different people and human contact and what type of mind does that person have. It's not just a repertoire of exercises. The human connection is so important. And as we go forward, the whole mind body needs to be in person, but it can be subsidized, and there's so much you can learn virtually. And so that's what we're trying to do, is how can we enhance the information? How can we get it out to more people, right? But just make sure that we don't go so far that way that for all our partners around the world, for example, that suddenly they all want to go virtual and the studio there, you know, has trouble making a living. So, you know, it's a give and take, right, on how far you go. But I agree, sorry, getting back to CFO, you know, this is a whole other opportunity, really exciting opportunity going forward for, I think, things to get even better. So.
Yeah, I agree. So this is kind of a question jumping off of conversations we've had over the last few weeks about how we're having a little bit more space and a little more time in our lives, even though we might still feel busy. It's a different kind of busy than what we're used to, and how we might be able to shift and refocus our career around sharing your strengths. I don't know if anyone that was maybe in another conversation or anyone right away has something they'd like to share around how they're sort of focusing their business and their career goals or projects around sharing their strengths digitally or in other ways. Oh yeah, go ahead, Mary. Oh, sorry, it's taking a second. There.
Yeah, so I'm finding that I have more time to take other people's classes. And as a teacher, my day was filled with teaching other people, that oftentimes the last thing I wanted to do was spend another hour in the studio or on my mat moving my own body. And I felt the destruction of what that was sort of doing to me. So I think a benefit of this for me has been being able to take lots of people's classes and see what they're good at. And big picture for me, I'm working on putting together more of online business, but I'm finding that because I'm taking all these other classes, I'm able to do referrals. Right now, it's sort of friends and family members, but I'm going, oh, you live in Ohio. There's this teacher whose class that I took because I follow her on Instagram and she's in Ohio. And actually, I loved her class. I think that you would completely get along with this. So I'm finding that this could be a really sweet opportunity for cross referral stuff, but also getting your own practice in.
Yeah. I tried belly dancing the other day.
Oh.
Couldn't hear that, do you? Because nobody could see me, right? So I'm like, oh, we just tried this one. And, you know, I would not show up in a class. It would be very scary for them, but it is kind of fun trying all of them.
Yeah. Does anyone else have a comment they'd like to share? No? Okay. Well, so does anyone have questions for Moira that they wanted to ask? Yeah, go ahead, Kim.
Hi, Moira.
Hi.
I haven't really followed you. I don't follow you on social media, but I've known about you for many, many years. And I have this is a question. I consider you kind of the mother of the contemporary Pilates.
I'm the mother. I'm like the mother of everybody. Yeah.
But I find
When you get old enough, that's what they, yeah.
you're the big sister. You're the big sister of contemporary Pilates.
I like that.
And I think what you have, I love what you've brought to the method as far. I see. I came into this I was 40 when I started teaching, and then started, went into my training, and it's just I just pick up things, and the STOTT method is what seemed to use more props, especially in the mat work. I maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but I think it's so interesting that you studied with Romana, who's the mother of the classical, and there still seems to be such a division. How do you?
I'd like to speak to that. Can I talk to that?
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is I don't see a division at all. Like we never compare ourselves to anybody. Our evolution was what we went through, and the team that came aboard with us, and all the brains that were involved, and what we felt was the best process as the scientific research came in. Very lucky that on our team, PJ Fitness, Wayne, who's like this brain of rehab and science. And then, we have connected with Vleeming, like we have the connections with the researchers. And so if we didn't evolve, we would have lost a lot of our really strong instructors out there, because they are all learning, damn it, all the time. Yeah. and so nothing's ever wrong. It's whatever the purpose is. For us, this is how we evolved, and how we needed to evolve and stay on top of the science. And that was very important to us, because in the beginning, because it was tough for me to say Joseph Pilates did it this way, I had to really get into the anatomy side and go, well, this muscle is attached to this, and then this is attached to that, and that's why that happens. And then when the research came out and everything we did was flexion, I was stuck. And so it was survival. Like we all survived, but I was so petrified. And so I would never, ever want anybody to feel bad about what they do or the type of exercise they do. I just say, you just want to have a really good reason for it. And if you have a good reason for it, it's all good. For us, we have so many brains with us that our reason is that was the direction we took it in. But I can take you through how Romana took me through, and people love it, right? And so there's a time and place for everything. But as we evolved, we went in that direction. So there's no judgment. And that's why what my point was, every workshop I do, everything we talk about, everybody in our organization talks about how Moira learned from Romana. It's not, and I stop it all the time, it's not classical versus this. Because even the classical is not, that was never the words we used way back then. It evolved from somebody branding this approach, and then not really maybe understanding exactly where the roots were. And so I think that as instructors, it's all good, but just understand where the roots are, and kind of as you go through your life, what do you need to add to it to make it fit in your world? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that does. Thank you, Kim. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to ask? Lindsay, go ahead.
I think Zoom is so interesting because it totally levels the playing field.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
And, right? Yeah. And we know that our clients love us because of, what we offer, what we do. And a lot of that is our teaching style. And maybe this is a question for Todd too, about how you differentiate yourself in the Zoom world when people have never taken your class before. and they can't walk into your studio and, you know, feel your energy and see your visual space and all of those kind of things.
Yeah. Todd, any comment?
Sorry. You outed yourself as a marketing person.
Yeah. Well, so because I don't really actively market myself in Pilates because I don't have a studio. But really people that are interested in doing Pilates with me, it's all through word of mouth. So one of my clients just recently had a friend who, you know, referred his friend to me, and we were about to start in March, and then, you know, basically couldn't go into the studio anymore. So for me, it's just, and I think for everyone here probably, it's really just about, you know, being a real person, and then, you know, and conveying that into your instruction. And that's why people love us as real people that they can relate to when you're doing your workout with them. And, you know, it's all about having fun, right? And at the same time, and bringing that sort of balance into the workout and making sure that the client is getting what they want out of the workout. So that's just kind of how I approach probably marketing myself.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think just to jump off of what Todd just said, I do think that authenticity, we've talked about quite a bit in these meetups, and also in terms of looking at what the client needs. I think when I was a dancer and I first started teaching, I got into the habit of like, I like this exercise and it feels good for my body, so I'm going to give it to all my clients. But starting to realize that what the client needs is beyond, you know, above all else. And if that means you have to communicate it in 1,000 different ways until you hit on the style that works for them in terms of gaining understanding, or if you have to change the programming in order to accommodate their needs, that the client needs come above all else. But yeah. Kathleen, were you going to add something?
Yes. Todd said something, and a question to Todd kind of made me think of, relate to it quite a bit. For the last 3 years, I've had to start thinking about online teaching because of the surgeries that I've had to have on my foot, and had to do long distance teaching with some of my clients. I had to go away and be away for several months, and they freaked out. What am I going to do? And I'm like, well, I'll find you another trainer, but I don't want to train with anyone else. Can't you do it online? And so I thought, well, we can try it, but I wouldn't do a group class. I'm like, you can only do privates with me while we're doing this until we work it out. And it started off with Google Hangouts and a computer screen. And I said she should have a big enough computer screen, and maybe even plug it from your laptop into a big screen television, so that
That's
great. It's what I'm doing right now. And over the last 3 years, it's evolved. I was doing in my studio, you can see my studio here, but I can only have about 5 clients in my studio tops. But now I can teach 5 here and 5 online, you know, and so it's really grown. And now I have clients in California and Arizona and Florida and Ann Arbor, and people that couldn't come to my classes before because I was full. Now they're joining, so it's amazing.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for that.
That's great. That's good.
Go ahead, Isabel.
Hi, do you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
So I have slightly more technical question about the day-to-day business. I mean, now, of course, it's different being online, but also being in a studio when we get back. I have now 2 studios, and I'm managing both studios. I'm not a manager. I was a ballet dancer for like 30 years of my life. Yeah. So I have like 0 skill in marketing, in business. You know, as a ballet dancer, you're just there. You have to shut your mouth and do whatever you're being told to do.
Yeah.
And so I was good at, you know, actually following orders. And now I have to take the decisions. I have a family, kids that are small. So it's all very complicated, and I try to teach as much as I can. So my question is, how do you organize yourself? How do you say no to maybe too many hours? How do you calculate, okay, I need that amount of administration versus how many hours of teaching? Is 8 hours teaching a day too much? Yeah, so that's
well, I think Sarah just jumped in.
Yeah, let Sarah go. Yeah.
Sarah, do you have any thing you'd like to share with her on that? It's okay if you don't.
I apologize. Can you
She's talking
restate
about
the question a little more?
Yeah. She's talking about how do you manage figuring out what needs the business has in terms of her teaching inside the business versus her administrating and managing the business, and how does she create balance with that? And you're smiling, so am I, because that's hard. You don't have to say anything. Anybody else can comment.
No, well, I mean, I'll try to come up with something. I always go back to my highest best use, right? So, and right now more than anything, and I mean, I can get caught up on my own pet projects and things that I love to do that feed my passion, that keep me happy, but they make no money. What my responsibility is right now is to keep my business alive, to keep the money flowing so that there's a business for all of my staff to come back to, not just the 4 or 5 of us that are working. And that's where I put my time and energy right now. Do I enjoy every moment of that? Absolutely not. But it's what I have to do for the business and for the people that I employ and the clients that I love, you know? So that's what prioritizes my day, is the economics.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Did anyone else want to share anything with that? Go ahead. Yeah, please, Moira.
Because I've been on all sides of the fence. When I started, as I said, I was, after dancing, I had 2 clients that I would travel 4 hours for one and then 4 hours for the other, right? And on the mat. And then I worked in the restaurant. Lindsay was a bartender. And all our tips went into making our first piece of equipment because nobody would sell us anything back then. So we're really going back. And I remember working in the restaurant and going, I wish I could just teach Pilates for 12 hours a day. That's all I want. Be careful what you wish for. Because eventually, Karen Keene was our first client. And Lindsay used to be able to sell, well, you probably still could, ice to the Eskimos. We took a picture on this old wooden piece of equipment that we'd put together. We went and got married in '88 in Bermuda, came back, and the answering machine was full because people had seen Karen Keene on our reformer. I suddenly had this clientele overnight coming into our apartment, highly illegal. And I went day in, day out, but I had a herniated disc in my neck when I came back from too much flexion. And so I was in agony. So here I am teaching people the best thing since sliced bread, can hardly even move my neck. But that was how we came up with the whole, if you're familiar with what we do, the craniovertebral flexion, because before you do an ab prep, because it was the only way I could get my head off the mat. And so I went from that 12 hours a day, kids, we had to do it. Lindsay would come in from, with Olivia, and I'd breastfeed, and then he'd go off. And I was lucky that he was an actor. We had flexible hours. It was only until we started employing people that the fear comes in, because you have instructors that then are ready to leave. So that's another thing that we always have to be prepared for, that everybody's going to move on, and you just have to be ready for that. And so if I can say anything, you want to have a place that people want to come to, but no matter how good you are, don't beat yourself up. They're going to leave sometimes because things happen in their life. That means they need to move on. It's just, as you say, highest and best use, which I thought was really good advice. Just prepare yourself for that. But if you really are into teaching, don't stop yourself, but just know you can't keep that up day in, day out. And we've had to stop our instructors who want to do 8 hours, because they burn out. And then they start phoning it in. And even they don't like that, but it's just that they need the money. So you're always, it's that give and take where, talk about mom, like, I want you to make the money, but I don't want it. I've seen the burnout before. So that's all I'm saying. And especially with kids, you're a bit of a vessel, you know, there you go. But they grow up and you love them, you know. But I think it's always that balance, and we're all different. I think, but I do advise you can't do it all. You need to find good people that are part of your team. And you'll wean them out pretty quick. There's the keepers, and then there's the people that, you know, are great instructors, but they're solo acts. And so let them go, because they're not, you know, they're great people. They're just not part of a team, right? But when you're in a studio environment, you want the team players.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, good. I'm sure we could talk about this a lot longer, but does anyone have any other questions they wanted to ask? No. Okay, well, I just wanted to say thank you, Moira, for joining us. I feel like really proud and grateful for this community that we have together in the Pilates world, and I feel like we are coming all together to help support one another and help heal people, as well as help support each other's businesses. If there's anything that you need, I'm sure within this community we can figure it out. So stay in touch, and let's keep talking and keep asking questions, and I'll let you.
Okay, sorry, I'm so bad, right? Like, sorry.
No, you can say as much as you want.
Only because I know what it's like out there as an instructor, trying to get by. And I think that, you know, and I've seen the fear when somebody's trained this way or that way or the other way, but there shouldn't be a barrier. Like, you know, right now in this world, we should be all in there together. And you know, anything we can do with you, regardless of where you're trained, you know, like just that this is a whole new world. And we were never like that before, but this way, you know, we can talk. And, you know, I think it's good because people just learn a little more about each other. And because I think a lot of it is maybe the unknown that creates a little fear. So, you know, just ask the question. I'm here.
That's awesome. Thank you. And if anyone has any cute dogs that they want to show us, yeah, please.
I'm the keener. Sorry, like don't ask me again.
Let's see some more dogs. Come on. I see Finnegan. Any others? No, everybody else is hiding maybe. Oh, I see one more coming.
Mine's downstairs. He prefers Olivia, so he doesn't come up with me.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Moira. And this will be recorded so we can share it with other people. So thank you again. Oh, there's a dog.
Oh, hey,
and yeah.
What's his name? What's his name,
Jen?
Tikla. She's a girl. Teekla.
Oh, very cute.
Tikla.
Oh, Kathleen,
I just woke her up, so she's like, "Where am I?"
Yes, I do have a question. I told you before I was using Google Hangouts, but then and it was a free platform, but then they would only allow 10 people, and so I did a bunch of research and I found Google Meet, which now I'm paying for, but. And I researched Zoom, but I read some articles about Zoom being quite as secure. So I was just wondering, what do you, is everyone using Zoom now? Because I'm still using Zoom.
I mean, raise your hand if you're using Zoom. It's quite a lot of us. I think that they've done a lot of updates in the last few weeks with their security, but you can change it. So like I had to admit each of you into this meeting. And so that gives me control. So if you were like a weirdo, I could just delete you out of there, remove you really quickly. And so I've done that for security, but even for meetings like this, anybody that has that link ID could come in and, you know, photobomb us or say terrible things, which would be it's terrible. The most secure way is if you're only giving that link to people via email. But but that makes it hard to market because people don't want to sign up ahead of time or receive an email ahead of time. I've found that people generally want to just jump in. And so
And is this format with Zoom, is this something that is paid for, or is this a free one?
No, I have the lowest level of paid membership. It's like $15 a month. And that seems to me to give me everything I need to do at this point. If you pay more, then you could have your teachers work for you and they could all be in their houses and you could manage all of their schedules. But right now I'm the only one teaching for my studio. So I don't need that.
Thank you. That helps.
Yeah. Anything else anybody wanted to add? I'm going to try to unmute everybody and then we can say goodbye all at the same time.
Bye.
Bye. Nice to see you all.
I like that.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Moira.
Hi.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.